Imagine you stand on the sun-drenched shores of the ancient Mediterranean. The salt air fills your lungs, and the gentle lapping of waves whispers tales millennia old. But beneath these shimmering surfaces, far from the light, lies a world unseen. It is a silent realm, a vast underwater museum, holding secrets whispered only to the currents. Here in the profound quiet rest the ghost ships. These are not mere wrecks. They are time capsules, silent sentinels of empires, trade, and untold human stories. You will journey with us into this abyss where history waits. You will hear the echoes of ancient mariners, feel the weight of their journeys, and witness the stunning beauty of their final resting places. Each one tells a tale of ambition, of peril, and of the sea's insatiable maw. Join us as we explore the Mediterranean's buried legacy. You might imagine a single dramatic shipwreck, a solitary vessel lost to a sudden storm. But the reality of the ancient Mediterranean's depths is far more profound, far more numerous. You are not looking at scattered incidents. You are looking at a vast, silent graveyard, one that stretches across thousands of miles and spans thousands of years. Think of it not as a few isolated graves, but as an entire sunken city, perpetually shrouded in twilight, its inhabitants not people, but ships. For millennia, this seemingly calm blue expanse was the superhighway of the ancient world. Phoenician traders, Greek colonists, Roman legions, Egyptian grain ships, Byzantine merchants, all plied its waters. Every journey was an act of courage, a gamble against elements both natural and human. And with every journey there was risk. Storms could whip up without warning, turning gentle waves into monstrous walls of water capable of snapping masts and splintering hulls. Hidden shoals, uncharted rocks, and treacherous currents lay in wait, silent assassins beneath the surface. Pirates, a constant scourge, haunted the shipping lanes, their swift galleys a terror to merchant vessels. Consider the odds for a moment. You are a sailor on a wooden ship, perhaps no larger than a modern fishing trawler, laden with amphorae of wine, olive oil, or perhaps precious metals. You navigate by the sun, the stars, and the memory of coastlines. There are no weather forecasts, no sophisticated charts, no search and rescue. A sudden gale could rise in minutes, transforming your world into a maelstrom of wind and spray. Imagine the creaking timbers, the desperate shouts, the overwhelming power of the sea as it tears at your vessel, slowly, inexorably pulling it down into the cold embrace of the abyss. And this happened not once, not 100 times, but tens of thousands of times. Some estimates suggest that over 1 million shipwrecks lie beneath the Mediterranean surface, a staggering testament to human ambition, enterprise, and vulnerability. Each one is a frozen moment in time, a capsule of history plunged into darkness. They are the silent sentinels, standing guard over the remnants of an era, preserving their secrets for millennia. What makes these ships sentinels? It is their unique ability to capture and hold a snapshot of the ancient world in exquisite detail. When a ship sinks, it takes with it not just its hull and rigging, but its entire cargo, the personal effects of its crew, its navigation instruments, and even the food and drink prepared for the journey. The suddenness of many sinkings meant that everything was often left exactly where it was at the moment of disaster. Unlike land-based archaeological sites, which are often disturbed by subsequent human activity, war, or natural erosion, these underwater sites remain largely untouched once they settle on the seabed. You can almost feel the chill of the deep as you descend, imagining yourself alongside an archaeological team. The light fades quickly, replaced by the soft glow of submersibles lamps or the focused beams of divers' torches. And then, slowly, something emerges from the gloom. Perhaps it is a mound of ceramic amphorae, stacked precisely as they were packed 2,000 years ago, still holding the faint ghost of their contents. Or a scattering of bronze coins, tarnished but still recognizable, telling tales of the empire they served. Maybe a lead anchor, its wooden stock long since dissolved, but its heavy metal flukes still gripping the ancient seabed. These sites are not just collections of artifacts. They are windows into daily life, into the vast networks of trade that connected distant lands. Imagine the merchant who commissioned the voyage, the calculations he made, the risks he took. Imagine the crew far from home, sharing stories and meals on deck, their lives abruptly halted by an unforgiving sea. You can almost hear their voices, feel the vibration of their footsteps on the deck planks, sense the camaraderie forged in the face of constant danger. The unique conditions of the Mediterranean itself play a crucial role in this preservation. For much of the deep Mediterranean, the water is cold, dark, and often low in oxygen. This anoxic or hypoxic environment is hostile to the organisms that typically devour organic materials like wood, ropes, and textiles. Where warm, oxygen-rich waters would quickly consume a wooden hull, leaving only the most resilient materials, the Mediterranean's depths often create a natural refrigeration unit, slowing decay to a crawl. This means that not only the ceramic jars or metal tools survive, but sometimes the very timbers of the ship itself, the rigging, even the personal belongings made of cloth or leather. You can trace the outline of a ship's hull, the elegant curve of its keel, the upright ribs reaching towards where a deck once was. You might see the remains of a galley still containing cooking pots, or the private quarters of a ship's captain, perhaps with a navigation instrument or a personal seal. These are not merely objects. They are direct links to the people who once held them, who depended on them, whose lives were defined by them. They are the voices of the past, speaking to us from the profound silence of the deep. Each shipwreck tells a unique story. Some speak of colossal economic loss, like the gigantic Roman grain ships that ferried wheat from Egypt to feed the hungry millions of Rome, their loss potentially triggering food shortages. Others whisper of military might, carrying soldiers, weapons, and siege engines to distant battlefields. Still others reveal the intricacies of ancient luxury, laden with exotic spices, fine silks, or exquisite marble statuary intended for the villas of the wealthy elite. The discovery of these silent sentinels is an ongoing process. With advancements in underwater technology, from remotely operated vehicles to autonomous underwater vehicles equipped with sophisticated sonar, archaeologists are continually pushing the boundaries of discovery, reaching depths once considered impossible. Each new find adds another piece to the vast mosaic of ancient maritime history, illuminating routes, technologies, and cultures in ways that land archaeology simply cannot. You are not merely observing history, you are witnessing its raw, unedited form, preserved in the very moment of its ending. The cargo is still in its holds, the personal items still where they fell, the very structure of the ship frozen in its descent. It is a profound, almost spiritual experience to encounter these ghost ships, these time capsules from a world long gone, waiting patiently in the silent depths. They remind us of the fragility of human endeavor and the enduring power of the sea. As we continue our journey, you will delve deeper into specific tales, exploring individual wrecks that have reshaped our understanding of ancient civilizations. You will learn about the revolutionary shipbuilding techniques revealed by some of these vessels, the intricate trade networks they reveal, and the human stories of triumph and tragedy that resonate even today from their watery graves. The silent sentinels are ready to share their secrets. The secrets whispered by these deep-sea sentinels often begin with the relentless, indifferent nature of the very waters they navigated. Imagine for a moment that you stand on the deck of a broad-beamed merchant ship, a trireme perhaps, or a sturdy Roman coaster, somewhere in the heart of the ancient Mediterranean. The air is thick with the scent of salt and sun-warmed timber. The rhythmic slap of water against the hull is the only constant sound, punctuated by the creak of rigging and the occasional shout of a sailor. This is your world, a world of vast blue horizons and unseen dangers. You feel the deck roll gently beneath your feet as your vessel cuts through the waves. The Mediterranean, that vast inland sea, was not just a body of water for ancient civilizations. It was a highway, a lifeline, a shared destiny. It connected empires and facilitated trade, allowing cultures to clash and coalesce. But it was also a capricious, often merciless mistress, a treacherous expanse that claimed ships and lives with a brutal regularity that modern mariners can scarcely comprehend. Let us begin our journey in the Aegean Sea, an area that holds a staggering number of ancient shipwrecks, earning it the grim moniker of an underwater museum. You are sailing in these sapphire waters, a patchwork quilt of deep blues and greens, dotted with countless islands. These islands, from the smallest rocky outcrop to the largest landmass, serve as both beacons and traps. In daylight, you use them for navigation, hugging their coasts, island hopping from one visible point to the next. You can always see land, a comforting thought, a constant reassurance. But this embrace is deceptive. The Aegean is notoriously shallow in many areas, its seafloor a labyrinth of submerged reefs and hidden rocks, lying just beneath the surface like the teeth of some ancient sea monster. You scan the horizon, watching for the subtle changes in water color that indicate a sudden change in depth. Your life, and the lives of everyone aboard, depends on your sharp eyes and the helmsman's steady hand. And then there are the winds. The Aegean is famous, or perhaps infamous, for its Meltemi winds. These are strong, dry northerly winds that blow relentlessly during the summer months. You feel them first as a gentle breeze, then they build, steadily, inexorably, into a gale that can whip the sea into a frenzy of whitecaps and towering waves. You watch the sail, a vast expanse of linen or wool, strain against the mast, threatening to rip itself free. Your ship, designed for coastal trading, is not built for such punishment. You hear the urgent shouts of the captain, the frantic flapping of the sail as sailors scramble to furl it, their hands raw from the ropes. The vessel pitches violently, throwing spray across the deck. You cling to the rail, the salt spray stinging your eyes, your clothes heavy with water. The sun, once a benevolent companion, is now obscured by scudding clouds, casting a grim, gray light over the churning sea. The islands that were once your guides now seem to loom menacingly, their jagged edges promising only a rocky grave if your ship is driven ashore. In these conditions, even a small error, a misjudged gust, a sudden shift in wind direction could spell disaster. The wooden hull groans under the strain, the timbers creaking a lament. You imagine the terror of those ancient mariners, facing a storm with only their wits and their sturdy yet vulnerable vessels. There was no engine to fight the current, no radar to see the hidden reef. There was only the power of the wind and wave, and the fragile strength of human ingenuity. Many of the ghost ships found in the Aegean bear witness to these battles against the Meltemi. They sank, often suddenly driven onto reefs, or simply swamped by the overwhelming power of the sea. Their cargo, often amphorae filled with wine, olive oil, or grain, scattered across the seabed, tells a silent story of trade routes interrupted, fortunes lost, and lives extinguished. Now, let us turn our gaze westward, toward the Tyrrhenian Sea, the stretch of water between the Italian peninsula and the islands of Corsica and Sardinia. This sea presents a different set of challenges, a different form of betrayal. While the Aegean is an intricate mosaic of land and water, the Tyrrhenian is a deeper, more open expanse, its depths plunging to thousands of meters. You feel a different kind of solitude here, a sense of being truly alone on the vast expanse of the ocean. Here, the dangers are less about hidden reefs and more about the raw, elemental power of the earth itself. The Tyrrhenian is bordered by a highly active volcanic arc. You sail past the smoking peak of Stromboli, the lighthouse of the Mediterranean, its constant eruptions a mesmerizing yet unsettling display. You know that beneath the seemingly calm surface, there are seismic forces at play. Earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions. These were not just abstract threats but very real dangers for ancient sailors. Imagine the terror of feeling the earth itself rumble beneath your wooden hull, the sea suddenly rising or falling without warning, or the sky darkening with ash from a distant eruption. The Tyrrhenian is also notorious for its sudden, violent storms. Unlike the more predictable Meltemi of the Aegean, Storms here can materialize with terrifying speed, often sweeping in from the west or south, bringing with them torrential rains and hurricane-force winds. You are in open water, far from the protective shelter of a nearby island. The waves here are not just choppy, they are mountainous, rising and falling with an immense power that dwarfs your vessel. You see the dark, ominous clouds gather on the horizon, not a gradual buildup, but a swift, dramatic darkening of the sky. The wind howls through the rigging, a banshee's cry, and the rain descends in sheets, reducing visibility to mere yards. The ship is tossed like a toy, every timber groaning, every joint screaming in protest. You know that out here in the vastness, there is no escape, no harbor of refuge within reach. Your fate is entirely in the hands of the elements. Piracy was another significant threat in these waters, particularly in periods of political instability. Roman merchant vessels, laden with valuable goods, were prime targets. While not a natural peril of the sea, the threat of pirates added another layer of constant anxiety for mariners. You would be constantly scanning the horizon not just for land or storms, but for the telltale silhouette of another ship, wondering if it meant trade or terror. In both these seas, and indeed across the entire ancient Mediterranean, the tools of navigation were remarkably primitive by modern standards. You would rely on the sun by day, its arc across the sky telling you the general direction. By night, the stars, particularly Polaris, would be your guides, a steady fixed point in the celestial sphere. You would know the shape of coastlines, the depths of certain bays, the typical currents. But there were no accurate maps, no compasses to point north, no sophisticated instruments to measure speed or precise location. Your knowledge was built on generations of oral tradition, on observations passed down from father to son, from captain to crew. You sailed by dead reckoning, by memory, by instinct, and by a deep, intimate understanding of the sea's ever-changing moods. And you prayed. You would offer sacrifices to Poseidon, to Zeus, to a pantheon of gods and goddesses, hoping to appease their fickle tempers and earn their protection. The ships themselves, marvels of their age, were ultimately vulnerable. Made of wood, relying on sails, they were at the mercy of the wind and wave. Overloading was a common practice, as merchants sought to maximize profit from each voyage. A ship carrying too much weight, especially if unevenly distributed, became unstable and far more susceptible to capsizing in a storm or breaking apart under strain. You can almost feel the added stress on the timbers, the subtle shifts in balance that signal danger. Every journey was an immense gamble, a testament to the courage and desperation of the people who undertook them. Imagine embarking on a voyage that could take weeks or even months, knowing that a single gale, a hidden reef, a moment of inattention, or a structural weakness could send you and your precious cargo to the bottom without a trace, without a hope of rescue. There were no search and rescue operations, no lifeboats, no way to signal distress beyond a desperate cry into the wind. It is these perilous conditions, this constant dance with danger, that gave rise to the thousands of ghost ships that now lie scattered across the floor of the Mediterranean. Each wreck, whether found in the treacherous shallows of the Aegean or the deep volcanic chasms of the Tyrrhenian, is a poignant reminder of the struggles faced by those who dared to sail these ancient waters. They are not just artifacts, they are silent witnesses to the unforgiving nature of the sea and the enduring human spirit that sought to conquer it. They are the stories of Aegean's deceptive embrace and Tyrrhenian's sudden betrayal. And they wait for us to listen. As these silent witnesses wait, calling to us from the deep, they invite us to understand the grand forces that propelled them across the waves. You stand on the shore of an ancient harbor, perhaps Ostia, the bustling port of Rome, or the vibrant docks of Alexandria. The air hums with activity. The cries of merchants mingle with the rhythmic clang of hammers and the shouts of stevedores. The scent of salt, fish, and exotic spices hangs heavy. Before you, a forest of masts pierces the azure sky, a testament to the maritime networks that crisscross the Mediterranean. These were not casual journeys. Every venture upon the sea was a calculated risk, driven by an insatiable hunger for resources, wealth, and power. You see the sleek war galleys, their lines sharp and menacing, designed for speed in battle. Hundreds of oarsmen, bodies glistening with sweat, would pull in unison, propelling the vessel forward with incredible force. These ships were the muscle of empire, enforcing control, protecting trade routes, and projecting power. Think of the triremes of Athens, their 3 banks of oars, a marvel of ancient engineering, capable of ramming enemy vessels. Or the quinquiremes of Rome, massive warships testament to Rome's relentless naval expansion. But alongside these instruments of war, you also see the broad-bellied merchant ships, the workhorses of the ancient economy. These were the true arteries of civilization, carrying the lifeblood of empires. Their sails, often square and unwieldy, caught the fickle winds, pushing them slowly but surely towards distant shores. These round ships were built for cargo capacity, not speed. Their holds would be crammed with amphorae, the distinctive ceramic jars that held wine, olive oil, garum, and other liquid foodstuffs. Imagine row upon row of these amphorae, stacked tightly, each one a perishable commodity, a potential fortune or a devastating loss. You walk among the stacked amphorae on the dock, their different shapes and stamps telling tales of origin. Wine from Rhodes, oil from Hispania, grain from Egypt. The sheer volume of goods is staggering. Grain, in particular, was the bedrock of ancient societies. The vast populations of cities like Rome depended entirely on shipments of wheat from fertile regions like North Africa and Egypt. A delay in the grain fleet could mean famine, unrest, and the collapse of an emperor's authority. The stakes were incredibly high. Beyond basic foodstuffs, the sea lanes teemed with luxury goods. Fine pottery, intricate glassware, marble from Greek quarries, metals for tools and weapons, timber for construction, slaves to fuel the labor force, even wild animals for gladiatorial games. All these commodities traversed the Mediterranean. Each voyage represented a colossal investment and an equally colossal risk. Consider the individuals aboard these vessels. The captain, a man of immense skill and experience, responsible for the lives of his crew and the entire cargo. He navigates by the stars, the sun, and the shifting patterns of the wind and waves, without compasses or accurate charts. His knowledge of coastal landmarks, currents, and hidden dangers is his most valuable asset. The merchants, often accompanying their goods, their fortunes tied to the fate of the ship. The sailors, weathered and tough, performing the arduous tasks of managing sails, rigging, and maintaining the ship. And on the war galleys, the hundreds of rowers, often free citizens or professional soldiers, but sometimes captives or slaves, driving the vessel forward through sheer human exertion, each stroke a testament to discipline and raw power. The very concept of empire was inextricably linked to maritime power. How could Rome feed its millions, project its legions, and exploit its provinces without an efficient and secure network of sea routes? How could Athens maintain its dominance over the Aegean without its formidable navy? Control of the sea meant control of resources, communication, and ultimately, destiny. Every port city became a nexus of power and prosperity, drawing in goods and people from across the known world. You watch as a large merchant ship, its single massive square sail billowing, slowly pulls away from the dock, towed by smaller craft until it catches the open wind. This vessel, like countless others, is about to embark on a journey that could define lives and shift empires. Its cargo, perhaps several thousand amphorae of wine, represents the agricultural output of an entire region, destined for the thirsty markets of a burgeoning metropolis. The journey might take weeks, perhaps months, hugging the coastline when possible, island hopping, always aware of the inherent dangers. The Mediterranean, for all its beauty, was a demanding mistress. Her unpredictable squalls could rise without warning, her jagged coastlines offered treacherous reefs, and her deep waters could swallow ships whole. Piracy was a constant threat, and rival empires were always eager to disrupt an enemy's trade. Yet the rewards were too great to ignore. The wealth generated by maritime trade fueled artistic endeavors, monumental architecture, and the intellectual pursuits that shaped Western civilization. It built cities and created empires. And so these ships sailed. They sailed for sustenance, for conquest, for knowledge, for luxury. They were the engines of globalization in their time, connecting disparate cultures and economies. Each vessel, from the grandest battleship to the humblest fishing boat, played a role in this grand, unfolding drama. They represent the tireless human drive to connect, to acquire, to build, to dominate. The ghost ships on the seabed are not merely accidental sinkings. They are the tangible remnants of this colossal enterprise. They are the moments when the fragile balance between human ambition and nature's power tipped decisively. Each one tells a story of a specific venture, a cargo of glass going to Alexandria from the Levant, caught in a winter storm, a shipment of lead ingots from Iberia to Italy, encountering an unexpected current near a hidden reef, a transport of soldiers and supplies, ambushed by pirates in a narrow strait. You picture the cargo in its final moments, amphory crashing, timber groaning, rigging snapping, the desperate cries of the crew as the sea claims its prize. Then silence. The slow descent into the cold, dark embrace of the deep. For centuries, these lost vessels lay undisturbed, their secrets preserved by the very elements that claimed them. The timbers, often preserved by lack of oxygen, the ceramic jars, impervious to time, the metal artifacts, slowly encrusted by marine growth, all waiting. They are time capsules meticulously sealed by the sea. When archaeologists excavate these sites, they are not just recovering objects. They are peeling back layers of history, uncovering the daily lives of ancient mariners, the economic intricacies of vast empires, and the technological achievements of shipwrights long past. An amphora, once a mere container, becomes a data point, revealing trade routes, production centers, and dietary habits. A ship's hull, its planks and frames now fragile, reveals shipbuilding techniques that defined an era. The exploration of these underwater sites is a painstaking process, often conducted in challenging conditions, mirroring the hardships faced by the ancient sailors themselves. Modern divers, equipped with advanced technology, descend into the abyss, their work illuminated by powerful lights, their every movement precise and deliberate. They document, photograph, and carefully retrieve fragments of the past, bringing them back to the surface for study and preservation. It is through these efforts that the ghost ships finally speak. They reveal how a powerful Phoenician trading network connected the eastern and western Mediterranean, long before Rome's ascendancy. They show us the vast scale of Roman commerce, reaching from the Atlantic coast of Spain to the shores of Syria. They illustrate the diverse goods and cultural exchanges that enriched the ancient world, shaping its art, its cuisine, and its philosophies. These sunken fleets are more than just archaeological curiosities. They are direct evidence of the daring, the ingenuity, and the human effort that underpinned ancient civilization. They embody the entrepreneurial spirit, the logistical challenges, and the geopolitical strategies of their age. You can almost hear the creak of the timbers, the flap of the sails, the splash of the oars, carrying the hopes and dreams of an empire across the unforgiving blue. The stories they tell are not just of loss, but of ambition realized, of wealth accumulated, of power extended, all balanced precariously on the strength of a wooden hull and the skill of a captain. Every time a ship sailed, it was a declaration, an empire's reach, a merchant's gamble, a people's sustenance. And every time a ship failed to return, it was a poignant, silent testament to the sea's ultimate authority. These forgotten voyages, lost for millennia, now offer us an unparalleled window into the very essence of ancient life and the forces that shaped it. They remind us that the sea then as now is a highway, a marketplace, and a graveyard all at once, and that the echoes of ancient ventures still resonate in its depths. The echoes of ancient ventures resonate in the depths, yes, but why are so many ships down there at all? You stand on the deck of an ancient merchant vessel, the Mediterranean sun beating down, the sails full, the sea a welcoming sapphire. But this calm is a fragile illusion, a temporary truce in a world defined by unpredictable, often violent, forces. For the ancient mariner, the sea was not just a pathway, but a hungry beast, ever ready to swallow ships whole. You are sailing in an era before reliable weather forecasting, before accurate charts, before lighthouses dotted every dangerous headland. Your life, your cargo, your very civilization, hangs by a thread of timber and a prayer to the gods of the sea. Consider the storm. Not just a squall that passes, but a true tempest, the kind that lashes the sea into a frenzy. You are clinging to the rigging or perhaps to the helm, your knuckles white, your body soaked to the bone by waves that crash over the deck with the force of a battering ram. The wind howls a furious song through the ropes, a sound that promises destruction. Below deck, the cargo shifts violently, threatening to breach the hull. You can hear the groaning of the timbers, each crack a terrifying whisper of imminent collapse. There is no escape, no refuge, only the endless, churning expanse of water and sky. Navigation becomes impossible. You are blind, deafened by the storm's roar, pushed wherever the waves dictate. A sudden gust can tear the sails to shreds, leaving you adrift, a tiny cork on an enraged ocean. The anchor, if you can even deploy it in such conditions, might drag, sending your ship scraping against unseen rocks. Many ships, laden with grain, wine, olive oil, and countless other goods, simply vanished in such storms, leaving no trace but perhaps a few scattered amphorae that eventually settle on the seabed. For every cargo that reached port, many more were claimed by the deep, their crews swallowed along with their dreams of profit. Then there are the reefs, the hidden teeth of the ocean, waiting just beneath the surface. You are approaching a coastline, perhaps seeking shelter from an approaching storm, or simply navigating a known shipping lane. The water here is shallower, but the currents are tricky, the visibility poor due to churned-up sediment. Suddenly, a sickening crunch reverberates through the hull. The ship shudders, groans, and then grinds to a halt. You have struck a reef, a submerged rock formation, a deadly obstacle that was not on your mental map of the sea. Panic erupts. The hull is breached, water pours in, cold and relentless. The ship begins to list, the mast threatening to snap. There is a desperate scramble to jettison cargo, to lighten the load, to try and refloat the vessel before it becomes completely impaled. But often the damage is too severe. The ship breaks apart, its timbers splintering, its contents spilling into the ocean. The crew, if they are lucky, might make it to shore on improvised rafts, but many more are dragged down with the sinking wreck, their hopes dashed against the unyielding stone. These coastal wrecks, often found in clusters, tell a grim story of treacherous navigation and the limitations of ancient seamanship. Imagine the terror of feeling your ship tear itself open on a jagged rock, knowing that the very land you sought for safety has become your executioner. But the dangers were not solely natural. The ancient Mediterranean was a vast, open highway, but it was also a lawless frontier. You are sailing along a familiar trade route, perhaps nearing your destination. The sun is high, the sea relatively calm. Then on the horizon sails appear. Not the familiar outline of a friendly merchantman, but the lean, predatory lines of a pirate galley. Your heart leaps into your throat. There is a frantic rush to prepare for defense, to arm yourselves with whatever is at hand, but you are a merchant vessel, not a warship. Your crew is trained to hoist sails and handle cargo, not to fight. The pirates are faster, their oarsmen driving them forward with relentless power. You hear the shouts, the clash of swords, the cries of despair as they board your ship. Your cargo, the culmination of months of effort and investment, is suddenly forfeit. Your freedom, perhaps your life, is now in the hands of ruthless brigands. Piracy was a constant, pervasive threat, a shadowy economy thriving on the rich shipping lanes. Empires battled it but never truly eradicated it. It was a risk every merchant knew, a gamble woven into the very fabric of trade. Beyond piracy there was the ever-present threat of naval warfare. You might find yourself caught in the crossfire of warring empires, your neutral status meaningless in the heat of battle. A trireme with its bronze ram could slice through your wooden hull like a knife through butter, sending you to the bottom in minutes. Or perhaps you were pressed into service, your ship repurposed for military use, only to be sunk in a devastating engagement. The wreckage of warships, often found near strategic choke points or ancient battle sites, speaks to a different kind of maritime loss, one born of human conflict and the desire for dominion. Each sunken warship represents not just a vessel, but a moment of intense struggle, a clash of wills and technologies, a testament to the brutal realities of ancient power. So many ships, so many lives, so much wealth, consigned to the depths not by a single cataclysm, but by a relentless barrage of threats. Storms, those uncontrollable forces of nature, ripped ships apart and scattered their remnants. Reefs, the hidden traps of the coastal waters, tore open hulls and swallowed cargo. Pirates, the human predators of the sea, plundered and destroyed without mercy. And naval battles, the grand, violent struggles of empires, turned peaceful trade routes into watery graveyards. Each one of these scenarios played out countless times across the millennia, transforming the Mediterranean seabed into an immense, silent archive of human endeavor and vulnerability. The ghost ships we discover are not merely artifacts. They are the tangible, poignant evidence of an endless struggle against the deep's insatiable maw, a struggle that shaped economies, influenced politics, and ultimately dictated the very rhythm of ancient life. The sea was an enabler of empire, but it was also its fiercest, most demanding adversary, constantly testing the limits of human ingenuity and courage. It demanded respect, paid in wood, bronze, and blood. The sea exacted its tribute, and in return, it offered a highway for unimaginable wealth. You stand on the shore of history, looking out at a vast, blue expanse that was once a pulsating artery of commerce, a conduit for the very lifeblood of empires. Imagine the bustling ports, the shouts of dock workers, the creak of wooden cranes lifting heavy loads onto ships that would soon vanish over the horizon. Every vessel that set sail carried more than just its crew and timber. It bore the concentrated ambitions, necessities, and luxuries of an entire civilization, a floating treasury heading to distant markets. What did these ghost ships carry into the abyss? You might picture chests overflowing with gold and jewels, and yes, sometimes precious metals and fine ornaments were part of the cargo. But the true riches of the ancient world, the commodities that truly fueled empires and fed populations, were often far more prosaic, yet infinitely more vital. Think of the endless rows of ceramic amphorae, each one a testament to the agricultural bounty of a region. These were the ubiquitous shipping containers of antiquity, holding everything from fine wines to potent olive oils, from pungent fish sauce known as garum to fresh water for the journey. Each distinctive shape and clay texture often told a story of its origin, a label etched into the very fabric of the vessel. You see the holds of these ancient freighters packed to the brim. Perhaps it is Egyptian grain, destined to feed the hungry millions of Rome, a colossal undertaking of logistics and risk. A single large grain ship could carry hundreds of tons, enough to sustain a small city for weeks. Picture the sheer volume, the mountains of wheat and barley, essential foodstuffs that drove the very existence of the Roman Empire. Without these regular shipments, the empire would starve, its legions would falter, and its power would crumble. This was not merely trade, it was strategic sustenance, a lifeline stretching across the turbulent waters. But beyond the staples, there were the specialized goods that spoke to the sophistication and interconnectedness of ancient societies. You find yourself among stacks of exquisite pottery, like Attic black figure or red figure vases, works of art traded across the Mediterranean, admired and collected by elites from Iberia to the Levant. Imagine the delicate care taken to pack these fragile pieces, cushioned with straw or fabric, bound for a patron's villa or a temple's treasury. Then there are the ingots of metal, copper from Cyprus, tin from Britain, lead from Spain, smelted and cast, waiting to be forged into tools, weapons, and statues. You can almost feel the weight of these raw materials, the foundational elements of ancient technology and infrastructure. The ships also carried timber, massive logs of cedar from Lebanon or pine from the Black Sea, essential for construction, for shipbuilding itself, or for heating homes in less forested regions. You can almost smell the resin, feel the rough bark as these colossal pieces were hoisted and lashed down. There were blocks of marble, quarried from Greek islands like Paros or Italy's Carrara, destined to become temples, statues, and grand public buildings, transforming cityscapes and leaving an enduring architectural legacy. Each block represented immense labor, from quarry to dockside, and then the perilous journey across the open sea. Consider the more exotic commodities. You might encounter traces of precious resins and incense from Arabia, used in religious rituals and perfumes. Spices from the East, highly prized for culinary and medicinal purposes, traveled along intricate overland routes before being loaded onto ships for the final leg of their journey. There were fine textiles, bolts of linen, wool, and perhaps even silk, dyed with vibrant pigments, including the famed Tyrian purple, a color so costly and exclusive that it became synonymous with royalty and power. Imagine the wealth represented by a single roll of this rich purple cloth, extracted from countless murex sea snails. These cargoes were the physical manifestation of ancient economies, the wealth generated by vast networks of production and consumption. When a ship sank, it was not just a vessel lost. It was a devastating blow to a merchant's fortune, a potentially critical shortage for a distant city, a ripple effect that could be felt across markets. For the merchants and investors, these voyages were high-stakes gambles. You can almost hear the anxious prayers offered before departure, the celebratory feasts upon a safe return. The sunken ships are thus not just archaeological sites. They are moments frozen in time, snapshots of an economic system that was both robust and incredibly fragile. Through the meticulous work of marine archaeologists, you can reassemble these shattered puzzles. You watch as they sift through sediment, carefully excavating thousands of amphorae, piecing together fragments of pottery, identifying the types of grain or the origins of the wine. Each find tells a story: the widespread popularity of Rhodian wine, the unique distribution patterns of Roman oil, the unexpected reach of a particular Greek potter's workshop. You learn about the standardization of containers, the development of sophisticated trade routes, and the intricate bureaucracy that sometimes governed these vast exchanges. The ghost ships reveal a level of globalization in the ancient Mediterranean that often surprises modern observers. Goods flowed from one end of the sea to the other and beyond, connecting diverse cultures and economies. You see evidence of this in the mixing of goods from different regions on a single wreck, Punic amphorae alongside Greek pottery and Roman bricks. This cross-cultural exchange wasn't just about goods. It was about ideas, technologies, and influences, all carried in the bellies of these unassuming cargo vessels. When you dive into these underwater ruins, you are not simply exploring a wreck. You are stepping into a marketplace of the past. The scattered debris on the seabed is not just junk. It is an inventory of an ancient shop, a catalog of everyday life and luxury. You can trace the hand of the potter who shaped the amphora, the farmer who cultivated the olives, the merchant who orchestrated the voyage. Each broken pot, each corroded coin, each waterlogged piece of timber speaks volumes about the people who made, bought, sold, and transported them. The ghost ships of the ancient Mediterranean are the ruins of empire's commerce, silent monuments to both its astonishing ambition and its inherent vulnerability. They remind you that the wealth of the past, so carefully accumulated and so courageously transported, could be snatched away in an instant by the unforgiving sea. Yet, in their loss, these ships have given us an unparalleled window into the very fabric of ancient life, allowing you to touch, metaphorically, the very goods that sustained and enriched the civilizations of antiquity. They are a poignant testament to the human spirit of enterprise, a story written in scattered amphory and sunken gold, patiently waiting for you to decipher its enduring message. The sea swallowed their journeys, but in doing so, preserved their truths. The sea swallowed their journeys, but in doing so, preserved their truths. But beyond the broken amphory and the scattered coins, beyond the grand narratives of commerce and empire, lies a more profound, a more personal truth. It is the truth of human life, of human endeavor, and of human loss. For every ghost ship, for every wreck site lying silent on the seabed, there was a crew, a captain, a group of men whose lives were intimately intertwined with that vessel. You have walked through the market stalls of antiquity in your mind, seen the goods change hands. Now step onto the deck of a ship. You are standing there, feeling the roll of the waves beneath your worn leather sandals. Imagine yourself a sailor in the ancient Mediterranean, a time when every voyage was an act of courage, a defiance of the unknown. You would know the feel of coarse rope against your hands, the perpetual ache in your muscles from hauling and climbing, the constant sway of the deck beneath your feet. Your clothes would be stiff with salt, your skin tanned and weathered by sun and wind. This ship, this floating world, is your home for weeks, perhaps months. It smells of tar and brine, of stale cooking fires and unwashed bodies, a smell as familiar as your own breath. You are one of a crew, perhaps a dozen men, perhaps 24, all bound together by the confines of the vessel and the shared purpose of the journey. You might be a Roman citizen, a Greek from the islands, an Egyptian, or a Phoenician. Your tongues may be different, but the language of the sea is universal. You share meager meals of ship's biscuit, dried fish, and watered wine. Your sleep is broken, often on deck under the vast, star-strewn sky, or crammed below in the suffocating dark with the groans of the timber for lullabies. Life at sea is a rhythm of expectation and vigilance. By day you watch the horizon, scan for other sails or for the telltale signs of changing weather. You mend sails, coil ropes, pump the bilge. By night, you stand watch, steering by the stars and the dim glow of coastal fires if you are lucky enough to be near land. Superstition is your constant companion. You tell stories of sea monsters, of vengeful gods, of omens good and bad. Before setting sail, you would have offered sacrifices, poured libations to Poseidon or Neptune, praying for fair winds and a safe return. For many, the sea was not just a livelihood, but a way of life, passed down through generations. You would know the intricate patterns of currents and winds, the subtle shifts in the sky that herald a storm. You would know the feel of the ship, how she groans and strains, how she responds to the rudder. This knowledge is your survival. Your life is a delicate balance, constantly poised between the promise of profit and the ever-present threat of disaster. Then comes the change. The sky, once a brilliant azure, begins to darken. A distant rumble, barely perceptible at first, grows into a menacing roar. The wind picks up, whistling through the rigging, turning into a shriek. The placid waves transform into mountainous swells, their crests frothing white, crashing over the bow. This is the moment when the ship ceases to be a haven and becomes a fragile toy in the hands of an enraged giant. You are scrambling along with your shipmates trying to lower the sails, to batten down the hatches. The deck is awash, slippery with spray and rain. The wind rips at your clothes, tears at your hair. You can barely hear the shouts of your captain over the tempest's roar. The timbers of the ship groan in protest, a symphony of creaks and splintering sounds that sends a chill down your spine. The mast strains, threatens to snap. You cling to a rope, your knuckles white, your body thrown from side to side as the ship pitches violently, rising high on one wave only to plunge into the trough of the next. Fear, raw and primal, grips your stomach. You think of your home, your family, the warm embrace of solid ground. You pray, silently or aloud, to any god who might listen. But the sea is merciless. A colossal wave, a liquid mountain, crashes over the stern. The ship shudders, reels, begins to break apart. The cargo shifts, heavy amphory smashing against the hull, tearing open the planks. Water rushes in, cold and dark, rising rapidly. This is the moment of panic, of desperate struggle. Men are thrown overboard, swallowed by the churning waves. You might grab onto a piece of floating timber, struggle against the current, feel the icy grip of the sea pulling you down. Perhaps you are trapped below deck, the water rising around you, the air growing scarce. The screams of your shipmates are choked off by the roaring water. The ship, once your protector, becomes your tomb. Your last breath is drawn in the chaos, perhaps a gasp of seawater, perhaps a final cry unheard amidst the storm. The cold embrace of the deep is swift and absolute. The ship, with its precious cargo and its human souls, descends into the crushing darkness, coming to rest on the seabed, miles from shore, unseen by human eyes for centuries. The story of your life, your journey, your hopes, ends abruptly, sealed within the silent depths. For most, death at sea meant vanishing without a trace. No burial, no tombstone, no final rites. Your family would wait, hope fading with each passing week, until eventually, your name became a whispered memory, a reminder of the sea's insatiable appetite. The shipwrecks, these ghost ships, are often the only markers of these lost lives. They are not just collections of artifacts, they are silent witnesses to countless personal tragedies. When archaeologists uncover a shipwreck, they are not merely finding pottery or coins. Sometimes they find more. The occasional discovery of human remains, perhaps a bone fragment caught beneath a fallen amphora, or a skull nestled in the sand, offers a chillingly direct connection to these lost seafarers. You might find a personal item, a small terracotta lamp, a simple bronze ring, a set of dice, or a worn leather pouch containing a few coins. These are not grand imperial treasures. These are the humble possessions of ordinary men, small talismans carried across the vast expanse of the sea, reminders of home, or perhaps, simply a way to pass the time during long monotonous watches. Each object offers a fleeting glimpse into the individual who once owned it. Who was the man who carried this lamp? Did he use it to write letters home, or simply to light his way in the ship's dim hold? What hopes did he pin on those coins in his pouch? Was he saving for a small plot of land, a dowry for a daughter, or simply a night of celebration upon his return? The questions echo across the centuries, poignant and unanswered. These shipwrecks are not just historical data points, they are graves. They are monuments to the courage, the resilience, and the ultimate vulnerability of ancient seafarers. The ghost ships remind you that the grand empires of antiquity were built on the backs of ordinary men, men who risked everything every single voyage to connect the sprawling world. Their lives were harsh, their journeys perilous, and their ends often tragic. The silent wreck on the seabed, with its scattered cargo and the faint imprints of lives once lived, tells a story far richer than mere economics. It speaks of the human spirit, the bravery to venture into the unknown, the ingenuity to build vessels that could withstand the sea's fury, and the sheer grit required to work and live on the waves. You can almost hear the voices of the crew, the creak of the deck, the splash of the oars. You can almost feel the spray on your face, the pull of the rope in your hands. The ghost ships are a testament to lives lived fully and dangerously, a profound reminder of the human cost woven into the fabric of ancient commerce. They are the final resting places of those who navigated the seas, connected civilizations, and ultimately found their last breath in the unforgiving embrace of the deep. Their stories, though often nameless, resonate across time, preserved in the very water that claimed them, waiting for you to listen to their enduring, powerful whispers. You have heard the whispers of the deep, felt the chill of the seabed, and imagined the lives that once populated these sunken vessels. Now, let us turn our gaze from their final moments to their magnificent birth. Imagine standing on the sun-drenched shores of a bustling ancient port, the air thick with the scent of sawdust and resin. Around you, the symphony of creation unfolds, the rhythmic thud of mallets, the rasp of saws, the clang of metal on metal. You are entering the world of the ancient shipwright, a master artisan whose craft was not merely construction, but an intricate dance with nature's most formidable materials. At the heart of every ancient vessel lay wood, the very soul of the ship. You see the towering trees brought down from distant forests, their massive trunks hauled by oxen and human strength to the shipyards. These are not just any trees. The shipwrights of the Mediterranean were discerning, choosing specific species for their unique properties. For the sturdy keel and ribs, you might find resilient oak, prized for its strength and resistance to rot. Its dense grain made it incredibly durable, capable of withstanding the immense stresses of a ship at sea. But oak was heavy and a ship also needed speed and buoyancy. For the planking, lighter, more pliable woods were often selected: pine, cedar, or fir, each offering a balance of flexibility and strength. Imagine the scent of freshly cut cedar, a wood known for its aromatic oils that offered a natural defense against decay and shipworms, a constant threat to any wooden vessel. Cypress, too, was favored in certain regions, its straight grain and natural water resistance making it an ideal choice for planks and masts. The journey of a tree from forest to ship was a meticulous one. You can almost feel the rough bark under your palm as the logs are carefully selected, seasoned for months, sometimes years, allowing their moisture content to stabilize and prevent warping. This patient drying process was critical, ensuring the wood would hold its shape and integrity once fashioned into a hull. Then came the arduous task of shaping. You watch as skilled hands wield adzes and axes, transforming rough timber into smooth planks, curved ribs, and massive keels. These were not mass-produced parts. Each piece of wood was selected and shaped with a deep understanding of its grain, its character, and its eventual role in the vessel. The method of joining these wooden elements was a testament to sophisticated engineering. For centuries, the dominant technique in the Mediterranean was the shell-first construction. You would see the planks of the hull meticulously joined edge to edge before the internal framing was installed. Picture the shipwrights meticulously carving mortises, rectangular slots, into the edges of one plank. Then they would fit precisely cut tenons, wooden pegs into these slots, interlocking the planks like a giant, intricate puzzle. These tenons were then secured with wooden dowels, driven through the mortise and tenon joint, creating a bond so strong it often outlasted the surrounding wood. This technique created an incredibly robust and watertight hull, relying on the structural integrity of the planking itself. You can feel the tension as each new plank is brought into place, slowly forming the elegant curve of the ship's body, piece by painstaking piece. As the hull took shape, attention turned to waterproofing. You might see workers applying pitch, a sticky dark resin derived from pine trees, to the seams and outer surfaces of the hull. This natural sealant was crucial, filling any tiny gaps between planks and protecting the wood from the corrosive effects of saltwater and marine organisms. The air fills with a pungent, earthy smell of hot pitch as it's brushed onto the wood, sealing the ship against the relentless sea. While wood formed the skeleton and skin of the ship, bronze provided its sinews and muscle. You observe the blacksmiths in a nearby forge, their faces streaked with soot, as they hammer and shape the gleaming metal. Bronze, an alloy of copper and tin, was an invaluable material for ancient shipbuilders. It was strong, durable, and resistant to corrosion in salt water, far superior to iron for marine applications in many respects. Imagine the multitude of bronze fasteners used. Nails, spikes, and bolts hammered through the wooden joints to provide additional reinforcement. These were not just functional, they were crafted with precision, their heads often flattened or rounded to minimize drag and protect the wood. But bronze had other, more specialized applications. For the formidable warships of the Greek and Roman navies, bronze was essential for the ram. You can almost hear the roar of the furnace as molten bronze is poured into molds, creating the distinctive, often three-pronged, prow that could splinter an enemy's hull. These rams were not just weapons, they were often exquisitely decorated, symbols of power and technological prowess. Imagine the polished bronze gleaming under the Mediterranean sun, a deadly weapon capable of deciding the fate of empires. Beyond the ram, bronze was used for various fittings: hinges for rudders and hatches, rings for rigging, and sometimes even sheathing for parts of the hull, offering an extra layer of protection against shipworms and barnacles, especially in later periods. The tools of the shipwright also relied on bronze. You see the chisels, adzes, and saws, their cutting edges often made of hardened bronze, allowing the artisans to shape the tough timbers with precision. These tools, sometimes simple, sometimes intricate, were extensions of the shipwright's will, transforming raw materials into a vessel capable of crossing oceans. And what of bone? While less prominent in the structural integrity of a large vessel, bone and ivory found their place in the finer details and functional components. You might observe small bone pins used for intricate joinery on lighter elements, or perhaps decorative inlays gracing the captain's cabin. Ivory, when available, was carved into elegant handles for instruments, or used for decorative accents that spoke of luxury and status. Even animal horn, softened and shaped, could be used for specific fittings or as reinforcing elements in areas of wear, offering a surprising durability for its organic origin. These materials, often overlooked, add another layer of detail to the complex tapestry of ancient shipbuilding, revealing a resourceful use of every available material. The true marvel, however, was not just the materials themselves, but the hands that worked them. The ancient shipwrights were masters of their trade, carrying centuries of accumulated knowledge passed down through generations. You envision them, fathers teaching sons, sharing the secrets of selecting the right timber, understanding the stresses a hull would endure, and knowing precisely where each plank and rib should sit. They worked without blueprints in the modern sense, often relying on mental models, scale drawings, and a deep, intuitive understanding of hydrodynamics and structural engineering. Their workshops were bustling hubs of activity, filled with apprentices learning the ropes, seasoned craftsmen offering advice, and the constant hum of tools shaping wood and metal. These shipwrights were innovators, constantly refining their techniques. From the early sewn plank hulls of prehistoric times to the sophisticated mortise and tenon construction of the classical era, and eventually to the gradual adoption of frame-first methods in the late Roman period, shipbuilding was an evolving art. Each sunken wreck you encounter is a snapshot of this evolution, a frozen moment in time illustrating the technological prowess of its builders. You can see the subtle differences in joinery, the variations in hull shape, and the distinct choices of timber that mark a vessel as Greek, Phoenician, or Roman. The ghost ships, then, are not merely remnants of ancient commerce or tragedy. They are profound testaments to the skill, ingenuity, and artistry of the ancient shipwrights. When you stand before the preserved timbers of a 2,000-year-old hull, whether in a museum or imagined beneath the waves, you are not just seeing wood. You are witnessing the culmination of generations of knowledge, the careful selection of natural resources, and the transformative power of human hands. You are seeing the marriage of wood, bronze, and bone, meticulously brought together to create vessels that braved the vast, unpredictable expanses of the ancient Mediterranean. They were not just conveyances, they were living, breathing entities, imbued with the spirit of their creators and the dreams of those who sailed them. And even in their silent slumber on the seabed, they continued to speak volumes about the brilliance of their making. Yet, the very brilliance of their making, the skill infused into every plank and peg, could not always withstand the ultimate adversary, the sea itself. You might imagine the tranquil blue of the Mediterranean, a shimmering highway for trade and empire. But beneath that deceptive calm lies a force of immense, untamed power, a wrecking ball of time waiting to strike. Think of a journey underway. You are a merchant, perhaps, or a passenger, your ship laden with amphorae of wine, ingots of copper, or finely carved marble. The sun glints on the sails, a favorable breeze fills them, and the rhythm of the waves is a comforting lullaby. Then, without warning, the sky darkens. A sudden squall descends, or a treacherous lee shore looms out of a sudden fog. The familiar creak of the timbers turns to a strained groan. The ship, a masterpiece of ancient engineering, is now locked in a desperate battle with elements far beyond human control. You feel the deck pitch violently beneath your feet. The roar of the wind drowns out all other sounds, even the frantic shouts of the crew. Waves, once gentle lappers, now rise like liquid mountains crashing over the bow, tearing at the rigging. The ship groans, shudders, then takes on water. Perhaps the seam gives way, or it strikes a hidden reef with a sickening crunch that reverberates through the entire hull. The vessel that was your world, your livelihood, your passage, begins its inexorable descent into the cold, crushing embrace of the deep. This is the moment when a vessel, a vibrant entity of the living world, transitions into a ghost ship. It is the moment when all human endeavor, all commerce, all life aboard, is suddenly and irrevocably stilled. For the ancients, these were unmitigated tragedies. Lost cargo, lost lives, a family's fortune swallowed by the waves. Entire fleets could vanish in a single storm, leaving behind only legends and a profound sense of loss. You can almost hear the lamentations echoing across the centuries, the prayers offered to Poseidon, to Neptune, to any deity who might grant safe passage, or at least a merciful end. These were not just ships, remember? They were arteries of civilization, and their destruction was a severe blow to the interconnected world of the ancient Mediterranean. But for us, 2 millennia later, these moments of ultimate destruction, these calamities, become something else entirely. They become extraordinary windows into a vanished past. The very forces that extinguished ancient lives and livelihoods also created the conditions for their remarkable preservation. This is the paradox of the wrecking ball of time. What was a catastrophic end for one era becomes a miraculous beginning for another. Imagine the ship settling on the seabed. If it lands in shallow, agitated waters, the story is often short. Waves and currents batter the wreck, scattering its cargo, eroding its timbers. Marine organisms feast on the organic materials. Within a few decades or centuries, little might remain but a scattered field of ballast stones, a few broken shards of pottery, and a faint echo in the memory of the seabed. You would find it hard to piece together its story. But sometimes, miraculously, the ship finds a different resting place. It might slip into the cold, dark depths where sunlight cannot penetrate, where oxygen levels are critically low or even anoxic. Or perhaps, just as crucially, it lands in an area where sediments, fine sands, silts, or muds, slowly, gently begin to fall. You watch as the grains drift down, one by one, like silent snowflakes, gradually blanketing the entire vessel. First the deck, then the mast, then the hull, until the entire structure, its precious cargo, and even the personal effects of its crew, are completely enveloped. This burial is a slow-motion embalming. The sediment protects the timbers from wood-boring worms, from strong currents, from the relentless abrasion of the sea. The low oxygen environment prevents the rapid decay that would occur on land or in shallower, more oxygenated waters. Suddenly, time does not pass in the same way. The organic matter of the ship, its wooden hull, its ropes, its woven baskets, is not devoured or disintegrated. Instead, it is stabilized, frozen in an anaerobic embrace. You are now looking at a time capsule. Not a sealed jar, but an entire vessel, packed with the fragments of an ancient world, suspended in a moment of catastrophic finality. The cargo, whether it is amphorae of olive oil, huge pit-hoy filled with grain, delicate glassware, or even bronze statues, is preserved as it was when the ship went down. Imagine the scene, a stack of pottery perfectly arranged for transport, now resting silently on the seabed, just as the stevedores loaded it 2,000 years ago. You can almost feel the weight of each jar, sense the careful arrangement. These ghost ships, entombed in the seabed, waited for centuries, sometimes millennia, for the moment of their rediscovery. For much of human history they remained hidden, glimpsed only by chance by a fisherman's snagged net, or revealed by a rare seismic event. But in our modern era, with technological marvels at our disposal, the ocean floor is slowly yielding its secrets. You might be part of a team, aboard a research vessel, systematically mapping sections of the seabed with sophisticated sonar. You send out sound waves, listening for their echoes, searching for anomalies in the otherwise smooth contours of the ocean floor. A faint bump, a subtle ripple, an unexpected signature on the screen. These are the initial whispers of a potential wreck. Then the next step. A remotely operated vehicle, or ROV, equipped with powerful lights and high-definition cameras, is carefully lowered into the dark abyss. As the ROV descends, the murky water slowly begins to clear, illuminated by its powerful beams. You watch on a monitor as the sea floor comes into view. And then there it is. Not a smooth, featureless plain, but the undeniable outline of something man-made. Perhaps a distinct pile of amphorae, their classic shapes unmistakable even after centuries. Or the dark, waterlogged timbers of a hull, slowly emerging from the sediment. The moment of discovery is electrifying. You are no longer just looking at data, you are gazing upon a physical link to a vanished past. You are the first human eyes, or rather, the first human-controlled camera, to witness this scene in perhaps 2 millennia. The silence is profound, broken only by the hum of the ROV and the hushed exclamations of the team. You are present at the resurrection of a story, a silent witness to a tragedy that has become a triumph of historical preservation. Each wreck is a unique archaeological site, a frozen tableau. It tells a story not only of the ship itself but of the culture that built it, the trade networks it served, the people who sailed it, and the very moment it met its end. You can trace the shipwright's techniques, the type of wood used, the methods of joinery. You can examine the cargo and understand the economic connections between distant lands. A cargo of fine tableware might indicate a wealthy passenger. A hold full of everyday pottery speaks of mass production and wide distribution. Sometimes even more intimately you find personal artifacts. A lamp, a piece of jewelry, a set of dice. These are profound connections. You hold a coin minted by a long-dead emperor, or a simple ceramic bowl used by a sailor whose face we can only imagine. These are not just objects. They are echoes of individual lives, small brushstrokes in the vast canvas of ancient history. They allow you to glimpse the everyday realities, the hopes and fears, of those who lived and worked on these vessels. The wrecking ball of time that destroyed these ships also inadvertently preserved them, transforming disaster into an unparalleled opportunity for discovery. These ghost ships, once symbols of maritime tragedy, now stand as our most direct, tangible links to the daily rhythms of the ancient Mediterranean. They invite you to not just read history but to touch it, to see it, to almost breathe the same air as those who sailed its waters long ago. Every piece of timber, every amphora, every scattered artifact tells a part of their silent, submerged story, waiting for you to listen. You have listened to the silent stories carried by every scattered amphora and splintered timber, felt the echoes of individual lives reaching across millennia. But these ghost ships, resting in their deep blue graves, offer more than just personal narratives. They speak a language of ingenuity, a testament to minds that mastered the elements with tools and techniques far more sophisticated than we often imagine. These wrecks are not just time capsules of everyday items. They are museums of ancient technology, revealing the brilliant engineering and inventive spirit of civilizations long past. When you peer into the darkness of these submerged hulls, you are not just seeing wood and ceramics. You are witnessing the culmination of centuries of naval architecture and material science. Consider the very construction of these vessels. Imagine the ancient shipwrights, not merely skilled laborers but sophisticated engineers. They understood hydrodynamics, the stresses of open water, and the properties of different timbers. They chose specific woods for strength, flexibility, and resistance to decay, often combining different types within a single hull for optimal performance. You might find evidence of mortise and tenon joinery, a remarkably strong method where carefully carved protrusions from one plank fit precisely into recesses in another, then secured with wooden pegs. This interlocking system, often employed for the hull's planking, created a remarkably resilient and watertight structure, allowing ships to withstand the immense pressures and relentless pounding of the Mediterranean Sea for decades. This was not haphazard carpentry. It was precision work, a testament to detailed planning and skilled execution that would impress even modern boat builders. Then there is the sheer scale of some of these ancient ships. Imagine colossal cargo vessels, sometimes over 100 feet in length, capable of carrying hundreds of tons of goods across vast distances. How did they achieve such feats of engineering without the aid of steel or advanced lifting equipment? You see the ingenious solutions in their design. Deep keels for stability, carefully balanced ballast systems using heavy stones or lead ingots to ensure proper trim, and sophisticated rigging plans that harnessed the wind with remarkable efficiency. Some wrecks reveal even more advanced techniques. You might encounter traces of lead sheathing, thin sheets of lead painstakingly hammered onto the hull. This was not merely a decorative choice. This was an ancient form of anti-fouling and shipworm protection, a technological innovation to extend the life of a wooden vessel in salt water. It was an expensive, labor-intensive process, demonstrating a clear understanding of marine biology and material preservation, and a willingness to invest heavily in the longevity of their most valuable assets. It shows an awareness of long-term planning and maintenance that goes beyond simple repairs. Beyond the ships themselves, you discover the tools and mechanisms that enabled their voyages. How did ancient mariners navigate without the benefit of a compass or precise chronometer? You find evidence of their mastery of celestial navigation, their deep knowledge of star patterns and the sun's movements. You also encounter the simple but effective lead line, a weighted rope used to measure depth, giving crucial warnings of shallow waters, an indispensable tool for coastal navigation. But the technological marvels extend even further, sometimes lying hidden within the cargo itself. Consider the Antikythera mechanism, a device recovered from a shipwreck off the coast of Greece, dating back more than 2,000 years. While its exact purpose on that particular ship remains debated, its existence is a powerful testament to the extraordinary mechanical genius of the ancient world. This intricate bronze device, a complex analog computer, could predict astronomical positions and eclipses decades in advance, track the cycles of the Olympic Games, and model the movements of the celestial bodies. To hold a replica of the Antikythera mechanism, or even to contemplate the scans of its corroded gears, is to touch the mind of an ancient genius. You see hundreds of precisely cut gears, differential gearing, and an understanding of kinematics that was not rediscovered in Europe until the late Middle Ages or Renaissance. It forces you to reevaluate what you thought was possible in the ancient world, challenging the notion that their technology was rudimentary. This mechanism, though perhaps a rare and precious cargo, shows the intellectual heights reached and the intricate craftsmanship available. It illustrates the potential for complex tools and knowledge that existed and traveled on these very ships. Think about the sheer logistics of ancient trade. Imagine the cargo holds of these vessels filled with hundreds, sometimes thousands, of amphorae, massive clay jars, each weighing many pounds, filled with wine, olive oil, or garum. How were these immense quantities loaded and unloaded without modern cranes or forklifts? You envision teams of sailors and dock workers, employing sophisticated systems of levers, pulleys and winches, likely simple but incredibly effective machines designed to multiply human strength. The arrangement of the cargo itself was a science, carefully packed to distribute weight evenly, prevent shifting during storms and minimize breakage. Each amphora nested against its neighbors, often with straw or dunnage to absorb shocks. This was not just brute force. It was applied physics and careful planning. Sometimes, the technological marvels are found in the specialized equipment carried on board. You might find remnants of sophisticated fishing gear, beyond simple hooks and lines, suggesting complex netting techniques or specialized traps. Occasionally, a wreck might yield medical instruments, demonstrating the advanced state of ancient surgery and healing. These were not just everyday items. They were precision tools designed for specific, often delicate, tasks, reflecting a high level of craftsmanship and scientific understanding. The ghost ships reveal that the ancients were not just building monuments or writing epic poems. They were also innovating, engineering, and pushing the boundaries of what was technologically possible. They understood the principles of mechanics, the properties of materials, and the complex forces of nature. They applied this knowledge to create ships that were durable, efficient, and capable of connecting the disparate parts of their world through trade and communication. These technological marvels, brought to light from the depths, are treasures far beyond gold. They are windows into the minds of ancient engineers, navigators, and artisans. They challenge our modern preconceptions, urging you to reconsider the intellectual prowess of civilizations often viewed through the lens of antiquity. They demonstrate that human ingenuity, the drive to solve problems and master the environment, is a timeless endeavor. When you contemplate the detailed joinery of a 2,000-year-old hull, or the astonishing complexity of a mechanism like the Antikythera device, you are not just observing an artifact. You are touching a profound legacy of human innovation. You are connecting with the brilliant minds who designed and built these machines and vessels, mastering their world with a resourcefulness that inspires awe. These submerged sites are not just graveyards of ships. They are libraries of invention, waiting for you to decipher their mechanical secrets and appreciate the sophisticated technology that once sailed the ancient seas. The very same engineering prowess that built merchant vessels to ply the trade routes, that designed complex mechanisms to track the stars, was also honed for destruction. You might imagine the tranquil blue of the Mediterranean, a vast highway for commerce and cultural exchange. But beneath its surface lie the silent, stark reminders of a different kind of ancient enterprise: war. Here, the sophisticated technology of the ancients met in terrifying collisions, battles that decided the fate of empires, carved out new territories, and extinguished countless lives in a single brutal afternoon. You descend into the cool, silent depths, leaving the sun-dappled surface far above. The pressure deepens around you, and a new kind of silence envelopes your senses. No longer are you searching for the elegant lines of a cargo ship laden with amphorae. Instead, your gaze sweeps across a landscape twisted by violence, a seabed littered with the detritus of forgotten combat. These are the graveyards of warriors, the final resting places of ships built not for speed and capacity, but for ramming, boarding, and sinking. Imagine the deafening roar of thousands of men, the rhythmic drum of rowers, the clang of bronze against bronze, the snap of sails tearing, the splintering of wood as two massive war machines collided head-on. Now, all that remains is an eerie stillness, broken only by the gentle sway of currents. You might encounter the haunting silhouette of a trireme or a quinquereme, its once proud hull now a skeletal frame, its timbers eaten away by time and organisms, yet still holding the ghostly shape of its former power. The carefully crafted curves that once sliced through waves now rest in eternal repose, a testament to both their construction and their violent demise. Look closer. There, half buried in the sand, is a bronze ram, a formidable weapon that was the ancient equivalent of a torpedo. Shaped like a trident or a beast's head, these heavy bronze castings were designed to punch through the hulls of enemy ships, to rip open their wooden sides and send them to the bottom in minutes. Finding one of these silent killers is to touch the very heart of ancient naval warfare. You can almost hear the death cry of a ship as it took such a blow, the desperate screams of its crew as the sea rushed in, the desperate scramble to escape a watery tomb. The immense force required to sever such a weapon from its ship speaks volumes about the impact it delivered. The wrecks of warships are distinct from their merchant counterparts. You won't find neatly stacked amphorae here, but rather a chaotic scattering of artifacts reflecting the urgency of battle. Spears, javelins, the remains of catapult projectiles, even the personal effects of soldiers, their helmets, armor fragments, the humble items they carried into battle, all lie scattered across the seafloor. Each piece tells a silent story of a struggle for survival, of a moment when the world tilted on its axis for hundreds of men. You might see the remnants of a lead sling bullet, its surface perhaps etched with an ancient taunt, a final message sent hurtling towards an enemy. Consider the sheer scale of some of these ancient engagements. The Punic Wars between Rome and Carthage, for example, saw naval battles involving hundreds of ships and tens of thousands of men. The Battle of the Aegates Islands in 241 BCE, the climactic naval engagement of the First Punic War, was a decisive Roman victory that shattered Carthaginian sea power. Archaeologists are still uncovering the remnants of this colossal clash off the coast of Sicily, finding dozens of bronze rams, each a testament to a sunk vessel. You can swim over this battlefield today, imagining the chaos and carnage that unfolded above you 2 millennia ago. Each ram recovered is not just an artifact, it is a monument to a lost ship, a fallen crew, and a pivotal moment in history, a solid piece of evidence that changed the course of the ancient world. These sites are not merely shipwrecks, they are underwater battlefields, preserved in the cold embrace of the deep. You can trace the lines of engagement, understand the tactics employed, and feel the raw power of these ancient fleets. Imagine yourself as a Roman or Carthaginian sailor, standing on a deck slick with blood and seawater, the air thick with the smell of sweat and fear, the roar of battle echoing in your ears. The sun glinting off weapons, the tension palpable, the fate of your entire civilization resting on your ability to ram, board, and conquer. The skill of the rowers, meticulously trained and coordinated, was as vital as the courage of the soldiers, for a ship's maneuverability could mean the difference between victory and oblivion. The famous Battle of Actium in 31 BCE, which pitted Octavian against the forces of Mark Antony and Cleopatra, reshaped the Roman world. While the exact location of the main battle remains elusive, scattered fragments and anecdotal evidence suggest the scale of this engagement. Fleets numbering in the hundreds squared off, their ships armed with rams, towers, and legions of soldiers. You can almost feel the tension in the air, the desperate gamble for ultimate power, a battle that secured Octavian's path to becoming Emperor Augustus and establishing the Pax Romana. The echoes of that conflict still reverberate, even if the wrecks themselves remain largely undiscovered, a tantalizing mystery in the depths, a potent reminder of the vast narratives still hidden beneath the waves. What truly distinguishes these ghost ships of war is the suddenness of their end. Unlike a merchant ship that might sink slowly due to storm damage or a navigational error, a warship often met its fate in a catastrophic instant. A well-placed ramming blow, a devastating volley of catapult fire, or a successful boarding action could send hundreds of men to their watery graves in mere minutes. This abrupt, violent end means that many warships are found with their contents largely intact, a snapshot of their final, terrifying moments. You might discover weapons dropped in the heat of battle, personal charms clutched by desperate hands, or the remnants of a ship's stores caught in the sudden plunge to the seabed. Imagine the confusion, the cold shock of the water, the inability to swim burdened by heavy armor. The ship becomes a coffin for many, taking their stories and secrets down to the crushing darkness. The silence of these underwater memorials is profound. Where once there was the thunder of oars, the shouts of commanders, the clash of steel, there is now only the gentle whisper of the currents. You become a silent witness to history, swimming through the very space where empires clashed and lives were lost. The preservation is often remarkable, particularly in oxygen-poor environments. Wooden timbers, ropes, and even organic materials can survive for millennia, offering an unparalleled glimpse into the construction and operation of these ancient war machines. The details of their construction, the types of wood used, the methods of joining, all speak to an incredible understanding of naval architecture, even when repurposed for destructive ends. These sights challenge our modern perceptions of ancient warfare. We often think of land battles, of legions marching across continents. But the control of the seas was equally, if not more, crucial for the projection of power, the maintenance of trade routes, and the security of empires. The Mediterranean was not just a sea, it was a battleground, a liquid arena where civilizations fought for dominance. And its depths hold the proof, the silent, corroded ghosts of those struggles. The strategic brilliance required to command such massive fleets, to coordinate hundreds of vessels and complex maneuvers, represents a pinnacle of military organization and logistical genius. You can almost feel the desperation, the courage, and the terror of those final moments. A ship's bow, twisted and broken, reveals the stress of impact. A stack of javelins, perfectly preserved, still seems ready for throwing. The sheer number of lost lives at sea during these conflicts is staggering. Unlike land battles where bodies could be recovered and buried, those who fell in naval combat often vanished into the waves, their ships becoming their shared tomb. Each wreck, therefore, is a mass grave, a memorial to anonymous heroes and forgotten sailors whose contributions shaped the world. The exploration of these sunken battlefields is a poignant journey. It's not just about recovering artifacts, it's about understanding the human cost of ambition, the ingenuity applied to destruction, and the sheer scale of ancient military operations. When you swim among these silent witnesses, you are touching the raw nerve of history, connecting with the triumphs and tragedies that shape the world you live in today. These ghost ships, once bristling with power and purpose, now rest as solemn monuments to an era of intense naval rivalry, their stories whispered by the currents and revealed by the patient work of underwater archaeology. They are a powerful reminder that beneath the tranquil surface of the sea, the echoes of ancient wars still resonate, waiting for you to listen, waiting for you to understand the profound legacy of their battles. You have heard the whispers of ancient wars, felt the lingering presence of forgotten sailors. But how, you might wonder, do these echoes endure for millennia? How do the fragile remnants of wooden ships, the delicate pottery, the very bones of those who sailed them, survive the relentless assault of time and current? The answer lies not in the ferocity of battle, nor in the strength of their construction, but in the quiet, unassuming embrace of the deep ocean floor. It is here, far below the churning surface, that nature becomes the ultimate curator, the sand a patient guardian, creating time capsules more potent than any tomb on land. Imagine for a moment the violent end of a ship, a vessel in its final agonizing moments. It groans and shudders, its timbers splitting as it succumbs to the unforgiving sea. Gradually, perhaps quickly, it descends, a silent plummet into the abyssal darkness. It might hit the seabed with a thud, scattering its cargo, or gently settle, a spent leviathan finding its last resting place. The impact creates a shallow depression, a cradle where the forces of decay immediately begin their work. But the deep ocean floor, particularly in the Mediterranean, often has another plan, a slow, deliberate act of preservation. You are now in the realm of the eternal night, where sunlight never penetrates and the crushing pressure holds sway. Here the water is perpetually cold, its temperature hovering just above freezing. This extreme environment is the first line of defense. The cold dramatically slows down chemical reactions, the processes that lead to rot and rust. Marine organisms that thrive on wood and organic material, like shipworms, find it difficult, if not impossible, to survive in these depths. The familiar destructive forces of the shallow sea simply do not exist here, or their power is vastly diminished. As the years turn into decades and then centuries, a subtle but relentless process begins. Fine particles of silt, clay, and sand, carried by deep currents or settling slowly from above, begin to drift down. They accumulate, grain by grain, year after year, like an endless, delicate snowfall. You can almost visualize it. A thin veil first, then a blanket, slowly, patiently covering the exposed timbers, the scattered cargo, the very shape of the vessel. This is the sand's embrace, a gradual entombment that locks away the past. This blanket of sediment is not merely a physical barrier. It transforms the immediate environment around the wreck. As the layers of sand deepen, they seal off the ship from the surrounding water, creating a localized world where oxygen is quickly depleted. This is perhaps the most critical factor in deep-sea preservation, the creation of anaerobic or oxygen-free conditions. Without oxygen, the bacteria and microbes that typically feast on organic materials, wood, textiles, leather, even food stores, cannot survive or function effectively. The destructive cycle of decomposition grinds to a halt. Think of it as placing an object in a vacuum-sealed container. The absence of oxygen prevents rot, decay, and the feeding of destructive organisms. What happens then is extraordinary. Wood, instead of disintegrating, becomes waterlogged, its cellular structure saturated, making it remarkably stable. Organic cargoes like olives, grains, and even fragile remnants of fabric or rope can be preserved in astonishing detail, awaiting the moment of discovery. You might find amphorae still sealed, their contents offering a taste of ancient diets, or the intricately carved details of a ship's sternpost looking as fresh as the day it was submerged. Contrast this with the fate of ships that sink in shallower, oxygen-rich waters. There, the processes of decay are accelerated. Currents batter the exposed structures, shipworms honeycomb the wood, and marine growth encrusts every surface. A shallow wreck might become a jumble of stones and pottery shards within a few centuries, its wooden structure long since vanished. But in the deep, beneath the sand, the ship is cradled, its structure maintained, a precise three-dimensional snapshot of a moment in time frozen for millennia. When archaeologists finally locate and meticulously uncover these deep-sea sites, it is an act of extraordinary revelation. You might imagine the painstaking work: delicate brushes, miniature dredges, carefully removing layers of sand that have protected the wreck for 2,000 years or more. As the sediment is lifted, often by remotely operated vehicles or specialized submersibles, the outline of the vessel begins to emerge. First a rib, then a plank, then the elegant curve of a hull, appearing from the murky depths as if awakening from a long sleep. What you witness as these layers are peeled back is not just a collection of artifacts, but a preserved ecosystem, a microcosm of ancient life. You might see the personal belongings of sailors, their shoes, their simple tools, perhaps even a coin tucked away for safekeeping. You might find remnants of their last meal, still discernible. The cargo itself tells tales of trade routes, economic power, and the daily needs of vast empires. Amphorae from distant lands, ingots of metal, blocks of marble, all speak of the interconnectedness of the ancient world. Each object, preserved by the sand's embrace, offers a direct, tangible link to the people who made, used, and transported them. This phenomenon of deep-sea preservation is why the Mediterranean is such a treasure trove of ancient wrecks. Its deep basins and relatively stable seabed provide ideal conditions for these time capsules to form. Unlike the more turbulent and corrosive waters of the open ocean, much of the Mediterranean acts as a giant natural archive. It guards its secrets fiercely, but it also preserves them with an efficiency that astounds. You are not merely observing a wreck, you are peering through a window into a lost era. The wood of the ship itself, once submerged and protected, offers invaluable data. Dendrochronology, the study of tree rings, can pinpoint the exact year the trees were felled, telling us precisely when the ship was built. The construction techniques, the types of wood used, the tools marks left by ancient shipwrights, all are preserved, offering unparalleled insights into ancient naval architecture and technology. These are not just ghost ships, they are instructional texts written in timber and cargo, waiting to be read. The sensation of uncovering such a site is akin to stepping into a perfectly preserved ancient house, its contents undisturbed since its inhabitants suddenly departed. The silence of the deep amplifies the sense of wonder. There are no sounds here but the hum of the submersible or the gentle whoosh of the currents. It is a place of profound stillness, where time has literally slowed its pace, allowing humanity's fragile creations to endure against all odds. The sand, often seen as an enemy of preservation on land, here becomes its greatest ally, shielding, encapsulating, and safeguarding the moments that slipped beneath the waves. It is a testament to the ocean's power not just to destroy, but to embrace and to hold, providing future generations with an unbroken link to their distant past. These deep-sea wrecks, cocooned in their sandy tombs, are truly nature's time capsules, waiting patiently to surrender their long-held secrets to those willing to make the journey to their silent world. The journey to these silent worlds, these deep-sea vaults of history, was not always possible. For millennia, the ocean kept its secrets locked away, guarded by immense pressure, chilling darkness, and the sheer impossibility of sustained human presence. You imagine the ancient mariners, perhaps watching their vessel disappear beneath the waves, believing its story forever lost, swallowed whole by an unforgiving sea. And for a very long time they were right. The technology simply did not exist to venture beyond the sunlit surface and retrieve anything more than stray flotsam. But humanity's curiosity, much like the tides, is relentless. The dream of exploring the underwater realm, of reclaiming lost treasures and lost histories, flickered across the centuries. You picture early divers, holding their breath, perhaps using weighted baskets, straining against the very limits of their physiology to snatch a glimpse of the wreck lying just beyond their reach in the shallows. These were fleeting, dangerous forays, more akin to desperate salvage than systematic exploration. They were driven by the lure of gold, the thrill of the find, rather than a quest for knowledge. Then came the turning point. The mid-20th century ushered in an era of unprecedented technological innovation, a time when the impossible began to seem merely difficult. You envision the momentous leap, the invention of the aqualung by Jacques Cousteau and Émile Gagnan in the 1940s. Suddenly, you were no longer tethered to the surface by heavy diving helmets and cumbersome hoses. You were free, breathing compressed air, able to glide through the water column with an autonomy that had been unthinkable just years before. This was not merely a new piece of equipment. It was a revolution. It opened up an entirely new frontier for exploration, a silent blue world that had been tantalizingly close, yet utterly inaccessible. The early days of underwater archaeology were a heady mix of daring adventure and scientific pioneering. You feel the cold embrace of the water, the strange muffled silence, as you descend for the first time on a known wreck site. It is often a chaotic scene at first, a jumble of broken amphorae, scattered timbers, and marine growth. The initial impulse for some was still that of the treasure hunter, to grab and retrieve. But a new mindset was emerging, a realization that these submerged sites were not merely repositories of valuable objects, but intricate historical puzzles, each piece vital to the larger picture. You see the shift begin. Visionary individuals, trained in traditional land archaeology, started to adapt their rigorous methodologies to this alien environment. The sea demanded new techniques, new ways of documenting, measuring, and preserving. How do you draw a precise site plan when you are constantly battling currents, managing your air supply, and struggling with buoyancy? How do you recover delicate artifacts that have been saturated with salt water for centuries, ensuring they do not crumble into dust upon exposure to air? These were monumental challenges, requiring ingenuity, patience, and a deep respect for the fragility of the past. One of the earliest and most pivotal scientific underwater excavations took place in Turkey, off the coast of Cape Gelidonia in the 1960s. You imagine yourself there, one of a small team of dedicated divers, working methodically in depths that pushed the boundaries of conventional diving. The wreck itself was ancient, dating back to the late Bronze Age around 1200 BC. It was a trading vessel laden with copper ingots, tin ingots, and tools, offering an unparalleled glimpse into the complex trade networks of the ancient Near East. This was not a find of gold or jewels, but a find of immense academic significance. Under the pioneering leadership of George Bass, often considered the father of underwater archaeology, the Geladonia wreck was excavated with a meticulousness previously reserved for land sites. You see the divers carefully mapping the site, piece by piece, using grid lines and measuring tapes that were unwieldy in the water. They drew detailed sketches on plastic slates, took photographs with specialized underwater cameras, and documented every single find in its exact context. This was a radical departure from the smash-and-grab approach of earlier salvage operations. It demonstrated that true archaeology, with its emphasis on context and systematic recovery, was not only possible underwater but essential. The information gleaned from sites like Cape Geladonia was transformative. It was as if a missing chapter in history had suddenly been found, written not on papyrus or stone, but in the timbers and cargo of a sunken ship. You begin to understand the daily lives of ancient mariners, the routes they plied, the goods they traded, the very construction of their vessels. You can almost hear the creak of the timbers, smell the salt spray, feel the rocking of the deck beneath your feet. These ghost ships, once silent and forgotten, began to whisper their stories, and the field of underwater archaeology was born, eager to listen. The early discoveries confirmed what many had suspected but could not prove. The sea floor was not just a graveyard but a vast, undisturbed museum. Unlike land sites, which are often plundered, rebuilt, or altered over centuries, deep-sea wrecks are frequently found in a state of remarkable preservation, sealed away from oxygen, light, and human interference. You consider the extraordinary conditions that allow a basket of textiles, or even organic materials like food remains, to survive for 2 millennia or more. It is a stark contrast to the decay that would consume such objects on land within mere decades. This unique preservation provides an incredible fidelity to the historical record. When you find a collection of amphorae on a shipwreck, you are not just finding pottery, you are finding a snapshot of a specific moment in time. The amphorae are often from a single production run, perhaps even from the same kiln, all loaded onto the ship for a single voyage. You can trace their origin, analyze their contents, and understand the economic networks they represent with a precision rarely afforded by terrestrial finds, which tend to accumulate over long periods. This tangible evidence helps to quantify and qualify ancient economic activity in a way that dry texts cannot. The development of new technologies continued to push the boundaries of what was possible. You think of the advent of submersibles and remote-operated vehicles, or ROVs, equipped with sophisticated cameras and robotic arms. These machines allowed archaeologists to explore depths far beyond the reach of human divers, opening up vast new territories for discovery. No longer was the deep ocean an impenetrable barrier. Now you could send your eyes and hands into the abyss, guided by sensitive sensors and powerful lights, revealing secrets that had been hidden since antiquity. These technological advancements have led to discoveries that redefine our understanding of ancient maritime history. You witnessed the discovery of the Uluburun shipwreck, another Bronze Age vessel off the coast of Turkey in the 1980s. It was an even richer trove than Geladonia, carrying an astonishing array of goods from across the ancient world. Imagine seeing hundreds of copper ingots, glass ingots in various colors, ivory, pottery from Mycenaean Greece, Egypt, Assyria, and Cyprus, even scarabs and jewelry. It was a floating international marketplace, a vivid testament to the interconnectedness of ancient civilizations. The excavation of Uluburun was a monumental undertaking, spanning more than a decade and requiring thousands of dives. You feel the immense effort, the meticulous planning, the sheer dedication involved in bringing this incredible piece of history to light. Each artifact was painstakingly raised, conserved, and studied, contributing to a tapestry of knowledge about ancient trade, technology, and culture that would have been unimaginable just a few decades earlier. Underwater archaeology has transformed from a niche pursuit into a recognized and vital branch of historical research. You recognize that every shipwreck is a unique historical event, a frozen moment in time that offers insights into daily life, ship construction, trade routes, navigation techniques, and even political economies. It forces you to rethink assumptions based solely on land-based evidence, providing a more complete and nuanced picture of past societies. You also gain a deeper appreciation for the ancient shipbuilders and sailors. What incredible skill it must have taken to construct these vessels without modern tools, to navigate vast stretches of open sea using only the stars and rudimentary charts. The ships themselves, when preserved, are masterpieces of engineering, revealing sophisticated joinery and construction techniques that defy their age. You see the lines of the hull, the mortise and tenon joints, the pegs that held the planks together, and you marvel at the craftsmanship. The preservation of organic materials is perhaps one of the most astonishing aspects of deep-sea archaeology. You might encounter wooden tools, woven ropes, baskets, even the remains of food or human clothing, all held in suspended animation by the cold, anoxic environment. These are the ephemeral objects that rarely survive on land, yet they offer the most intimate connections to the lives of the people who used them. You can almost reach out and touch the texture of a 2,000-year-old rope, or examine the weave of a garment worn by a Roman sailor. This is the power of underwater archaeology. It brings the past to life in a visceral, immediate way. It allows you to step through a portal, not just to observe history but to feel it, to experience the physical remnants of ancient journeys and the tragedies that sometimes befell them. These aren't just artifacts. They are echoes of human endeavor, sacrifice, and ambition. And so, the silent world of the seabed, once a feared and unknown abyss, has become a vibrant archive, a place where the whispers of forgotten voyages can finally be heard. The ghost ships of the ancient Mediterranean are no longer just legends or lost statistics. Through the dedicated work of underwater archaeologists, they have been given a voice, their stories pieced together from the scattered fragments of their final resting places, allowing you to bear witness to the incredible maritime heritage of humanity. The journey continues, pushing deeper, seeing more clearly, listening more intently to the ancient whispers rising from the dark blue. The challenge now is not just to discover but to protect. Imagine the vastness of the Mediterranean Sea. From the ancient shores of Greece to the sun-drenched coasts of North Africa, its waters stretch for thousands of miles, hiding secrets beneath layers of time and silt. You stand at the edge of this immense blue expanse, feeling the ancient rhythm of the waves, and you begin to grasp the sheer scale of the task. How do you guard an empire of ghost ships, scattered across such an immeasurable domain? This is where the endless vigil truly begins. It is a tireless, often unseen battle fought on multiple fronts, against forces both natural and human. You might picture solitary divers, meticulously documenting a fragile wreck, or perhaps scientists in labs, racing against time to stabilize artifacts brought up from the deep. But the vigil is far broader, more complex, and more desperate than any single image can convey. One of the most persistent and devastating threats comes from illicit salvage, from the modern-day pirates who plunder the past for profit. You hear their shadow stories, rogue treasure hunters armed with sophisticated sonar and remote-controlled vehicles, sweeping across known and unknown wreck sites. They descend not with the gentle touch of an archaeologist, but with the ruthless efficiency of a mining operation. They rip through delicate wooden structures, pry apart cargo, and leave behind a chaotic trail of destruction. For them, every amphora, every bronze statue, every coin, is merely a commodity stripped of its historical context, its voice silenced forever in the black market. Imagine a pristine wreck site, perhaps a Roman merchant ship, lying undisturbed for 2 millennia. It is a time capsule, each object in its place, telling a story of a moment frozen in time. Then the looters arrive. They might use explosives to break up a hull, or grapple hooks to tear through layers of cargo. You picture the clouds of silt they kick up, blinding the sight, obscuring the evidence of their crime. They focus on the high-value items, discarding the less glamorous but equally important fragments that could piece together the ship's identity, its crew, its final voyage. When they are done, what remains is not a library but a ransacked ruin, its pages scattered and burned. This is not archaeology, it is an act of cultural vandalism. Beyond the deliberate destruction by humans, the sea itself is a relentless adversary. You think of the deep-sea currents, constantly shifting sediment, slowly eroding the wooden hulls and fragile contents of these ships. Marine organisms, from wood-boring worms to corrosive bacteria, also play their part in the slow gnawing process of decay. Even a subtle change in ocean chemistry, perhaps due to pollution or climate change, can accelerate this deterioration, turning what was once a stable environment into a hostile one. You realize that even when untouched by human hands, these silent witnesses are engaged in a slow, natural retreat back into the elements from which they came. The anchors of modern ships, dragging across the seabed, can also wreak havoc, scoring deep furrows through ancient sites. Fishing trawlers, with their heavy nets, can accidentally snag and rip apart fragile structures, pulling up artifacts from their long rest. You consider the immense network of underwater cables, pipelines, and offshore installations that crisscross the Mediterranean today, each construction project carrying the potential to disturb or destroy untold archaeological treasures. The very activities of modern civilization, however necessary, pose an implicit threat to the buried legacy. So, who are the guardians of this legacy? Who stands watch in this endless vigil? You picture a diverse array of individuals and organizations. There are the dedicated marine archaeologists, not just at prestigious universities, but often working for national heritage bodies, their days spent in remote offices poring over sonar data, or descending into the cold depths. You might see them, clad in specialized diving gear, armed with cameras and notepads, meticulously documenting every detail of a site. Their work is a race against time, a painstaking effort to record and understand before a site is lost forever. They are joined by conservators who work miracles in specialized labs, stabilizing waterlogged wood, desalting metal artifacts, and piecing together shattered ceramics. You imagine their patient hands, working with tools of incredible precision, reversing centuries of decay, bringing objects back from the brink of oblivion. Their expertise ensures that what is recovered can be studied, displayed, and admired by future generations, rather than crumbling to dust. The vigil also involves legal experts, drafting and enforcing national and international laws against underwater looting. You consider the complex web of treaties, for example, the 2001 Convention on the Protection of the Underwater Cultural Heritage, a significant international agreement which seeks to establish global standards for preservation and to combat illicit trafficking. This legal framework provides the teeth needed to prosecute looters and to encourage international cooperation in protecting these shared treasures. And then there are the less obvious protectors, the navies and coast guards, tasked with patrolling vast stretches of coastline in open water, sometimes encountering illicit salvage operations. You imagine their patrols not just looking for drug smugglers or illegal migrants, but also keeping an eye on suspicious activity over known wreck sites. Their presence, though often invisible to the public, acts as a deterrent. Crucially, the vigil extends to local communities. Fishermen who spend their lives on the water are often the first to accidentally discover a wreck or to notice suspicious activity. You hear stories of them reporting their finds to authorities, understanding that these ancient relics are not just a curiosity, but a part of their shared heritage. Divers, both professional and recreational, are increasingly being trained to recognize and report archaeological sites, becoming the eyes and ears of the deep. They are the everyday citizens who, through their awareness and respect, become vital allies in this protective effort. The methods of protection are as varied as the threats. You consider the advancements in remote sensing technology. Autonomous underwater vehicles, equipped with high-resolution sonar, can map vast areas of the seabed with incredible precision, creating detailed images of what lies beneath without ever touching the seafloor. These maps help archaeologists identify potential sites, assess their condition, and prioritize where to focus their limited resources. You might visualize these silent robotic explorers, gliding through the darkness, extending human perception to previously unreachable depths. For many sites, the best form of preservation is often in situ preservation, leaving the wreck where it is, undisturbed. You understand that every time an artifact is brought to the surface, it enters a new, often volatile environment, requiring intensive and costly conservation. Therefore, whenever possible, archaeologists advocate for protecting sites in place, sometimes by reburying them under layers of sand or geotextile to shield them from currents, erosion, and looters. You imagine a Roman galley gently covered, put back to sleep for another century, waiting for a time when technology or resources allow for its careful study. However, when a site is imminently threatened, or when its scientific value is so profound that excavation is justified, the process is one of extraordinary care. You picture the methodical, almost surgical precision of underwater archaeologists, using specialized tools to document every plank, every pottery shard, every bone fragment, before it is brought to the surface. It is a race against time and decay, a meticulously planned operation where every movement is recorded, every context preserved. But perhaps the most powerful tool in this endless vigil is public awareness and education. You realize that laws and patrols can only do so much. True protection comes from a widespread understanding of the value of this underwater heritage. Exhibitions, documentaries like this one, educational programs in schools, and digital reconstructions of ancient ships all play a part in fostering a sense of wonder and respect. When people understand that these ghost ships are not merely old things, but living stories, irreplaceable windows into our collective past, they become advocates for their protection. The journey to safeguard the Mediterranean's buried legacy is an unending one. It requires constant innovation, unwavering dedication, and a global commitment. You recognize that the fight against looting, against natural decay, and against human indifference is not a battle that can ever be definitively won. It is an ongoing watch, a continuous negotiation between discovery and preservation, between the pull of the past and the demands of the present. As you reflect on this endless vigil, you sense the immense responsibility we bear. These ghost ships, these silent witnesses, whisper their stories to us from the deep. It is up to us, through the tireless efforts of a dedicated few and the collective will of many, to ensure their whispers do not fade into an eternal silence. Their legacy, waiting beneath the waves, depends on our unending care.